Welcome to Management 621. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is Mike Stahl. I'm going to be your instructor for this course in the online MBA program. Really excited about working with you guys. This is my second time teaching this particular course as an online course. I've got a long history with this class. I designed the very first offering of this class back in 2001 for our MBA program. It was actually the very first class we offered in entrepreneurship in the MBA program here at Cal State San Bernardino in entrepreneurship. So I've had a nice long journey with this class. It's evolved significantly over the last 14 years, and it evolved even further to be taught in the online domain. And I'll be upfront with you guys. Before I started doing the online teaching, I was not a proponent of online education. I thought that it probably had some benefits, but I also was concerned about what I saw some of the limitations. I felt a little bit hypocritical in that viewpoint because I had never taught online. So I volunteered to teach the entrepreneurship course online in the last cycle for the online MBA program, and it went, I thought, extremely well. I still think there's some limitations, but I really enjoyed the experience. I thought the students did a great job. Got great feedback from the prior cohort that took the course. So I hope that you enjoy the experience as much as I do, and I hope that you get quite a bit out of the course. This is kind of an orientation, if you will, something to get you set up and moving in the right direction, kind of setting the lay of the land, giving you the broad strokes of what the class is about and what to expect as we go through this class. I always prefer to do something like that because otherwise we're just jumping in, and I like to get a little bit of rather than jumping into the deep end, I like to gradually make my way into the deep end and things, and I think this is a good way to do it in this class with this introductory module. So basically what we're going to do in this module is take a look at the objective of the course. This course is a required course for entrepreneurship students in the traditional MBA program. It's an elective for you guys. And as a result, you may have some interest in entrepreneurship, but you may just be taking it because it's available. And what I'm hoping is that when you come out of the other end of this course, you're really going to be excited. You're going to see the application of what we're doing in this course to your work, even if you're not planning to become an entrepreneur. How can we apply this thing called entrepreneurship in lots of contexts? And we'll talk about that. Going to look at what you'll be learning, so kind of want to give you the lay of the land in terms of the topics we're going to cover in the class. Talk a little bit about how you're going to be learning, the structure and the process that we use in this class to facilitate the learning. Every class, face-to-face, online, has some built-in limitations. There's just nothing we can do to get across all the knowledge we need to bring forward in a class. There's limitations in learning, there's limitations in time, and those are readily apparent in the online domain as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the limitations of the course. My expectations in terms of what I'm hoping you will do in the class and how you'll perform. And then talk a little bit about the basis of any of my entrepreneurship classes are really heavily skewed towards student involvement, participatory learning, discussions, and you guys bringing it to the table. And then also a big factor is what I call takeaways, which I'm going to describe a little bit later. That's a really key component of the process of my courses. So I think that's a good setup, and why don't we jump in and take a look at basically what the course objective is. And really, from my perspective, what I'm really hoping that you will leave this course with fundamentally is a really solid understanding of who entrepreneurs are and what they actually do. I think the word entrepreneur, as you see here depicted, and the description that follows, which talks about people that are willing to invest hard work and take risk and those kind of things. I think there's a general conception in society of who entrepreneurs are and what they do. I'm not sure it's an accurate conception. And hopefully when you leave this class, you'll have a better idea of what entrepreneurs are, who they are, and what they actually do, and maybe even to some degree why they do it. And I think the word entrepreneur is very loaded. And I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people say, hey, Tell me about entrepreneurs, or I know an entrepreneur, or I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm always curious as to see how they define it, and to whether they actually are an entrepreneur and whether they are entrepreneurial. And I always say that the loose definition of entrepreneur is somebody who takes the risk and starts a business. But then the question is, are they beyond just that? Do they do more than just start a business and take the risk? Are they entrepreneurial? Are they innovative? Do they do things that take the business from one level to the next? Or are they really a small business owner? So we're going to kind of explore that in this class, and what they do, how they do it, when they do it, all those things. And we're also going to look at this idea that entrepreneurship and entrepreneur is context driven, and the fact that you can be an entrepreneur in just about any context. There's terms called social entrepreneur, corporate entrepreneur, those kind of things. We're going to step through those, talk a little bit about them in this course. I'm a big believer. I think my experience, as you'll learn a little bit later, is a good validator of my belief that entrepreneurial people, entrepreneurs can be found in any context. People that start and run their own companies, you can find them in corporations, you can find them in nonprofit organizations, you can find them in social movements. You can find entrepreneurial people in a lot of different places. And so really, at the end of the class, hopefully you'll understand this idea of entrepreneurship and who entrepreneurs are and what they do and how they behave and when they do it and why they do it. What's the motivation behind all this stuff that they're doing. In the class, we're going to talk a lot about that piece of the puzzle. So basically, we're going to dissect the person. Who is the entrepreneur? What characteristics do they have? What behaviors do they exhibit? And what traits do they have? And you're going to have a crack at dissecting yourself as an entrepreneurial person. So part of the coursework will be geared towards that. Entrepreneurs do stuff. It implies action. And so we're going to take a look at some of the models that help us understand the process that entrepreneurs use. I've got one depicted here that's probably the most popular that's been developed in the last 25 years, called the Timmons model. And we'll kind of take a little bit of a look at that. I'm fond of saying that every business starts as an idea, and the problem is that not all ideas are created equal. And we really have to, when looking at businesses, we have to look at whether the idea that's generated is actually any good. And the other piece of it too is, like, where do the ideas come from? Probably, I'm guessing 80% of the students I've dealt with here at Cal State San Bernardino over the last 14 years have not had any idea what kind of business they want to start. They're really puzzled, and they say, well, I know I want to start a business, but I don't know what business it is I want to start. And so the genesis of the idea is really important. Where do ideas come from? Is there a process? Can we use it? Where do we look for ideas? And we're going to cover that in this class. And we're also going to look at, how do we know whether these ideas represent a business opportunity, something that's sustainable, that's that we can scale and make a little bit bigger than just a small business. Startup models. This is interesting because there's lots of different ways to approach starting a business, and we're going to look at, probably, in my experience, the three most common models that are used. And they range from really simple to complex. But for you, as somebody looking at this from the outside, it's like, how do we know which one's the right approach? How do we know which model is the best? And in this particular class, we're going to look at that. We're going to dissect those different startup models and look and see, is there one that's better or worse, or are they all about the same, or is one better in certain situations than others? We're going to take a look at that. Resources. One of my favorite things, because, when we talk about entrepreneurs and startup businesses, people think about money. I was just meeting with a student about an hour ago, and very excited about her business concept. But, and then she started talking about, well, I'm going to need to raise money. And I said, well, you need to think about this startup venture in a broader way. it's not just about the money, it's about the resources. And there's a whole lot more to starting a business than just money. And there's a whole lot of resources out there that can assist you. And there's a whole lot of resources you need to be able to get access to and control in order to be a successful entrepreneur. And in this class, we're going to explore what that concept of resources means. And then last but not least, there's got to be something at the end of the road. Every business has a lifespan, whether it's been planned out or just happens. Every business reaches the end of the road, or it reaches a new stage of its being, so to speak. And we really want people to understand that this concept of being an entrepreneur, there should be a thought to some kind of exit. We're going to exit the business. There's a strategy to either sell the business, it's sort of like, I always liken it to growing a crop and never harvesting it. At some point, you as the owner are going to want to harvest your hard work. That's through selling the business. That's through maybe a succession plan for family business owners, to a next generation. It could be going public. There's a number of ways to slice it, but we're going to look at that concept of exit strategies and why, and whether you should be thinking about an exit. I've had lots of people tell me, oh no, you should never think about the end. You should always be focused on constantly growing the business. And it's an interesting discussion to have, and we're going to have that in that module of the course. The course, it mimics the 5-week structure of the online MBA. We're going to cover all these items in 5 weeks. So we have 5 individual modules. We'll cover these basically 6 topic areas over the 5-week period. So for the course, you've got this introduction plus the 5 modules. We've got some projects we're going to have you work on in terms of the course. Those projects, the major projects, one is called Exploration of the Entrepreneur. Then we have the Personal Entrepreneurial Discovery. We have the Idea Generation Exercises, the Business Concept Profile Project, which I note that that's a team-based project. Everything else in this course is individually driven. And then finally, we have the Reflection Project. And the Exploration of the Entrepreneur is just simply you getting a chance to meet and chat with somebody that runs a successful company that meets our definition of an entrepreneur. All the details for these projects are contained in the syllabus for the course. But I think it's a really powerful thing to be able to talk to somebody that's a successful entrepreneur and get their perspective on what they've gone through and how it's affected their life. Personal entrepreneurial discovery really looks at you. We turn the focus inward on you, and we have you do some things to assess how entrepreneurial you are and what your motivations are in regard to looking at entrepreneurship. I've had some students that say, I've entertained getting rid of this project a few times, and every time my students say, no, don't. This is a very valuable project. Keep it in the course. And for some students, it's been really insightful. They've learned things about themselves that they wouldn't have otherwise. I mentioned every business starts as an idea earlier, and this is where the rubber meets the road. You're going to have to come up with ideas for businesses in this class, and we're going to take you through 3 distinct idea generation exercises to do that. The ideas that are generated in this class, we're basically going to take the top ideas, which in this class will be probably, I think, about 8 ideas. And we're going to take those ideas and we're going to subject them to further evaluation. That's the Business Concept Profile Project. I'll give you more details on that as we move forward. And the last big project in the class is a reflective project where you actually look back at what you learned in the class and summarize it in a meaningful way that helps you remember it and also communicates it to other people like me what you learned in the class. So that's basically the structure and the process that we're using for this particular class. In terms of the expectations and potential limitations of this class, this is a 5-week class, folks. This thing blows by. It is fast. You guys already know that. This is a class, all of our online classes they're just typically taught in 10 weeks. So we're really compressing things. So it's fast-paced. An entrepreneurship class is fast-paced no matter what, but this class in particular requires you to really take charge of the learning process. You cannot hang back. You've got to be engaged. As one of my colleagues is fond of saying, entrepreneurship is a contact sport. You got to get in the game and make contact. I think this is really important to stress. This class, nor any other entrepreneurship class, is designed to turn you into an entrepreneur or comprehensively prepare you to launch a business. You're getting a taste. You're getting a bite of the apple in this class. To really be prepared to be an entrepreneur takes multiple courses, it takes commitment, and it takes really you looking inward and saying, this is me, this is my calling, and this is what I want to do, and I'm going to immerse myself in it. I'm going to really immerse myself and embrace this 10,000 hour rule of like really becoming good at my craft. This class isn't designed to do that, but hopefully it gives you a good sense of what it means to be an entrepreneur, what entrepreneurs do, and maybe opens you up to the possibilities. Entrepreneurship education is really, really experiential when it's done well, and that's incredibly challenging in the online format. I'll just be upfront about that. We're working on it. I still have ideas, but it's going to take a while to bring them to fruition, and it's going to take a lot of experimentation. And so I just want you to be aware that, the way I teach this class, similar but not comparable to a face-to-face, because we can do a lot of, we can break a lot of things physically. We can experiment, do a lot of things face-to-face that are harder to do in the online format. Not better, not worse, just harder to do. In this class, I want you to focus on learning first. Everybody focuses on their grade. I get that. It's an important metric for you guys. But focus on learning first. If you don't learn it, you can't use it later on. And that should be applied to every class you take. But particularly important here. And last but not least, in this expectation piece, the mantra, the catchphrase, if you will, of our entrepreneurship program is that students need to learn how to think like an owner. You've been trained, even as a professional, to think a certain way. And we really want you to embrace this class and think like an owner. What that means is you are engaged, you are proactive, you take responsibility, you make things happen, you don't sit back, you see the whole and not just the piece. Think like an owner. I know that it sounds like it just sounds like a catchphrase, but it's meaningful in action. I'm thinking about one of my former students who graduated 2 years ago, decided rather than start his own company, he decided to go to work for a large corporation. And about a year after he started there, he and I are connected on LinkedIn, and I got a little notice that said, hey, this person has just gotten a promotion. So I sent him a little note saying, hey, congrats on the promotion. And he responded back and said, that's my third promotion in the first year on this job. And so we started an email dialogue, and basically what he shared is that he said, all the things I learned in the entrepreneurship program, I'm applying in my job in this corporation. And he said, the biggest thing is that philosophy of thinking like an owner. He said, I think like an owner. Everything I do, I'm thinking like an owner. And he said, you'd think it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but he said, it's making me stand out. That's why I'm getting promoted. It's because I'm doing things nobody else even thinks about. So I think it's a really powerful thing. And then applied to this class, I think you'll get more out of the class. I alluded to this, the discussions earlier and the takeaways. We'll take those a point at a time. An online course, is really, for me, is the same as a face-to-face class in one critical way. My online class and my face-to-face class, students drive the discussion. I don't typically lecture. I provide information, background information, very similar to what I'm doing now. And based on all the preparatory materials I give the students, readings, videos, exercises, we then take those and we tear them apart in class so that we can understand them. We ask questions. We try and find meaningful connections. So in the face-to-face and the online class, I'm a participant in the discussions. I'm not the leader. You guys have to drive the process. And I think that's particularly salient in the online class, that you really got to come strong. You got to really go through the materials. You got to understand them, and you got to bring that to the discussion. So really, really important. The second piece, point 2, takeaways. I'm big on learning. I'm big on remembering things. My wife says that I should go on Jeopardy because I remember so many things. And I always tell her, I said, I would love to. I think I would do well. But I always worry, man, would I forget everything when I got on TV? That's my worry. But the thing about learning is we know from brain science, if there's anybody that's a brain scientist out there, chime in. We know that any sensory information, inputs that come in, they have to go into your short-term memory. And then they have to transition into your long-term memory. And if they don't go into your long-term memory, boo, it's gone, not coming back, or not coming back out without really a hard effort to retrieve it somewhere. But the reality is, if it doesn't get to long-term memory, you're not going to remember it. And there's so many important things to remember. It's really, really hard. But we focus in this class on takeaways. And what takeaways are after each module, we want you to think back on what were the most important things I learned. What were the most important concepts? It might be 3 concepts. It might be 5. It might be 7. But it probably shouldn't be any more than that. It should be a 3 to 7 number that you go, you know what? I think those are important. They resonated with me. I'm geeked about it. Whatever it is. I want to remember those things. And so takeaways are a form of what they would call rehearsal. The way that we take stuff and short-term memory and allow it to be processed into long-term memory is we rehearse it. If we don't rehearse it, it's lost. And so the takeaways are a way for you to stop at the end of the module, sit back and think about what were those key concepts, what were those things that I was pumped about and I need to remember. And you document those. That's a form of rehearsal. It's like sitting down at a piano and practicing. It's a form of rehearsal. It's a form of repetition. And hopefully that rehearsal, and maybe even not only typing it out, but then thinking about it, and maybe even talking about it. Talk to your friends. Talk to your spouse, your partner, your significant other. Talk to your boss. Talk to the people who work with you. They're going to think you're crazy, but talk to them about this stuff. That helps you rehearse. It helps encode it into long-term memory, because I want you to come out on the other side being able to use some of this stuff. Wouldn't that be great? So many of our classes are focused on remember it for a short period of time and then lose it. Don't worry about it later on. But you're paying all this money for an MBA. You want to remember this stuff. So in this class, we're going to do takeaways at the end of each module. And it's going to feel a little bit repetitive, but that's okay. That's how we rehearse information. Okay, so you got to deal with me for 5 weeks. Who is me? Who's Mike? Depends on who you talk to, I guess. I've kind of got a diverse background. I don't know. I have a hard time talking about me, but I'd like to think, and I think my experience and history proves this, is that if there's any one thing I'm passionate about, besides my family, obviously, it's entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurship. I love this idea of creating new things. I love this idea of changing things, changing the way people live and work, changing outcomes, being a positive contributor. And my experience as an entrepreneur, I think, really goes back to my childhood. I'm the offspring of an entrepreneur. Since the time I was 5, that I was exposed to a startup business, and then a growing business, and then an established business, and I got to live through all that and be a part of it. But, in those formative years, I was one of those kids, I'm raising my hand, I had the lemonade stand. You don't see those as much now, but I had one of those. I was the kid in the neighborhood that was trying to make a buck, and the allowance, the minimal allowance I got, I always wanted a little bit more, and my parents told me, gotta find a way to supplement that on your own, So I did that. Really seminal event in my life. My mom had to go through surgery when I was probably 10 years old, right around there. And so I was taught by my dad and my sisters how to do the laundry and how to bake cookies and how to make simple meals, because I was going to have to do that while my mom was recovering from her illness. And that was really important for me, because I figured out everybody else, the kids in the neighborhood, my friends, they're eating cookies out of the bag because their moms worked. All of our moms worked. And I was making cookies and I would sell them. I found a way to make money. So I was that kid that was doing that kind of stuff, which was fun. I mentioned earlier I grew up in a business. My parents started a manufacturing company. It's an avionics manufacturing company that made high-level communication systems for aircraft. You see on the screen there a picture of the New York City Police Department helicopter flying over the city. New York City Police was one of our large customers. That business I grew up in. I did every conceivable job in the business. I worked my way up in the company, and most people think, well, family business, you're gonna get to the top anyways. And I always tell them, well, you've never met my dad. There was nothing ever given to you. In fact, it probably took, I'm guessing, 20 years of me being gone from the business before I got a compliment about my contributions for the family business. And so from that perspective, I had to learn. I had to do everything from the ground up. Really interesting experience. I ended up running the company, had a great time, great experience. But like many family businesses, I faced a shared vision problem. I had a vision of one thing, and the rest of the family had a vision of the other. And so that led to me saying, you know what? I love my family. Life's too short. I'm going to go and do other things. And as much as I, didn't want to leave the family business because I loved it, it was something I needed to do. And as I've talked to other people who have been involved in family companies over the years, many of them have gone through similar experiences. One of my former students is going through that experience right now. So I said, he came to me and I said, it's very natural. It happens. And some people cycle back to the business. Others, like me, never go back. But great experience. I learned so much. I think my dad was an entrepreneur, but he also, in some areas, wasn't so entrepreneurial. But I really enjoyed that experience. I enjoy the fact that I met so many great customers. New York City Police Department, the military, the Drug Enforcement Administration, U.S. Forest Service, California Highway Patrol, L.A. County Sheriff, all these folks from across the country and around the world. Great times working in that company. I'm very proud of the fact that one of the products I developed, in fact, the product on the screen, is still the company's best seller to this day, probably almost 20 years after I developed it. So that's pretty cool. So I had a chance to see all aspects of a company. I also started a couple of companies when I was in college, one of which was, the best way to describe it, I tell people, is that it was American Pickers before there was American Pickers, if you're familiar with that TV show. When I left my family's business, I ended up doing some consulting, and I went to work for a program called the Small Business Development Center. And I ended up running that. I grew that company, organization, doubled in size in about less than 5 years, won national awards for that program, had a great time. And then while I was at the SBDC, I got tapped to come and be a part of the founding of the Center for Entrepreneurship here at Cal State San Bernardino as a board member. And then from there, I ended up teaching some courses in the entrepreneurship program that was fledgling at the time. And then through happenstance, long story, but through happenstance, I ended up being asked to take over as director of this really emerging entity called the Center for Entrepreneurship here at Cal State San Bernardino, the Inland Empire Center for Entrepreneurship. And I did that in May of 2002, and I've been the director of that program ever since. And in that period of time, I was not trained as an academic. When I came up here, I went back and got a doctorate. And they transitioned me into a faculty position, which I am now a tenured full professor of entrepreneurship, serve as the academic director of the entrepreneurship program, director of the Center for Entrepreneurship. I like to think of myself, and some people have called me the entrepreneur in residence. I'm the entrepreneurial guy here at Cal State San Bernardino, particularly in the College of Business. And we've got a great program, nationally ranked. We've won awards for our program, and I'm really proud of the work that our team has done here in taking what was really a fledgling program with just a handful of students. I think we had 15, 16 students when I got here. We've got about 300 students now. We've raised more than $25 million for the program over the last 14 years and established a lot of really cool things. And I'm very proud of the work we've done here. Been one of the most rewarding professional experiences I've had. And the nice thing is I get to do all the stuff that comes naturally to me, which I think is just kind of being the entrepreneurial person. But I get to do it here at the university, which is really fun, very challenging, but very, very fun. So that's me. And I love teaching. It's kind of the reward at the end of the day for me. As an administrator here, I'm also the department chair for the management department in the College of Business and Public Administration. So I get to do a lot of stuff here, and the real reward for me is working with the students. Always challenging, always enlightening, always pushing me to do my best. So next steps for you, because you've got 5 modules ahead of you as we bring this introduction to a close. Make sure you download and thoroughly, and I mean thoroughly, with a fine-tooth comb, review the syllabus. Really give it a once-over. Work it out. See if I made any mistakes. Occasionally I do. And then make sure, if you're not sure about something, now something doesn't quite seem right or doesn't resonate with you, whatever it is, oh man, don't suffer in silence. Let me know. Seek clarification right away, please. Participate in the brief introductory discussion. You'll see that posted. Just pop in there. If you can, I've got photos of some of you. You know, our faculty system, you know, for the course has photos of some of you, but I always like to see a photo so I know who I'm dealing with. My bio is up on there. You can learn a little bit about me if you want. You can see who I am. But participate in that brief discussion. Some of you may know each other. You've taken courses together. But inevitably, even in this online class, and we've got a pretty big chunk of people in this class, inevitably most of you, at least more than half of you, don't know who each other are. And so this is a good time to interact and get to know each other a little bit. And get started on Module 1. You can start right away. I've opened up, as of you're viewing this, listening to me go on and on, you can get popping on Module 1, and if you want to try and work ahead, you certainly can. I don't, for an online course, to stop from kind of the overload that can happen, I don't open the second module and the third module and the fourth module and the fifth module. I don't open those up until a couple days before the module we're in closes. So there's a little bit of overlap for you. If you like to work fast and you can work ahead, that's great, but you can't see everything all at once. I don't want that. That's sensory overload. It's task saturation. We don't do that. But as you're working on Module 1 and you're ahead and you think, I've got a lot of stuff done, I can get a head start on Module 2. It opens typically, modules for the most part in this program for me, for my class, close on a Sunday night. And I try to open the next module on the Friday before the Sunday closing. So you have a couple of days. If you want to do some overlapping, you can. Again, I'm looking forward to working with you guys. Please let me know if you have any questions. You're not clear about anything. You're not sure. But bring your A game. Let's have fun. I love this class. I had a blast. I was so shocked. I tell you, I was so shocked. I had such a blast teaching this class last time. For me, for the online, I was skeptical. I'd said that before. But the students really won me over because they were really engaged, really insightful. And for that, in fact, I think that's the real power of the online. In a group of 28 students, for example, in the classroom, I can't make everybody participate. And in the online class, you've got to participate and bring your A game. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it. So that is the end of the introduction to Management 621. Looking forward to seeing you guys the rest of the way through.